Uncle Sam can offer you a job where you earn $100,000 a year. It comes with full benefits, normal business hours, and all you have to do is sit at a computer and push some buttons. A game. But playing this game is an honor. Your mission is to locate and destroy targets. Like an invisible hawk, you stalk your prey 30,000 feet in the air, competing for the highest score. There's no need to think, just play. Join us in your first drone strike. When we tell you, press the button and fire. Your infrared vision shows the cloud of searing white heat shoot across the dark cool of night. As the light fades, nothing but darkness is left in the empty landscape, except for one speck of heat. You zoom in and watch as the blood fades from a human figure, and they slowly go from white to grey until all you can see is a void of black, as if nothing was ever there at all. This is no game. This is the reality of drone warfare. Signature drone strikes are a counter-terrorism method used by Western nations. Searching for patterns in people's activity, drones identify signature terrorist behavior and preemptively carry out attacks. But because there's no way to see a terrorist from 30,000 feet, signature strikes have proved highly inaccurate, with fatal repercussions for drone operators, war-torn communities, and even our own understanding of war and peace. When you begin as a drone operator, it's safe. Your parents can sleep at night because it really does feel like you're just playing a game. It's fun. It has to be fun. Imagine being cramped in a hot tin box. Boss breathing down your neck, the weight of your country on your shoulders, handing out death on repeat. Uncle Sam's promise of a good job obscures this reality. It paints war as a career path. In fact, drone operators suffer from the same levels of depression, anxiety, PTSD, alcohol abuse, and suicidal tendencies as traditional combat crews. Even when we keep them at home, even when no one is firing a gun, these soldiers are not spared by this absence of war. Their parents can sleep at night, but they are wide awake. And this is nothing in comparison to the famine of safety and sanity experienced by those trapped beneath the flames of signature strikes. In a 2015 attack on a meeting of Pakistani tribal elders, 42 innocent community leaders were blown apart because their activity mirrored the narrow definition of signature behavior. Jalal Kyle lost 4 of his cousins in this attack. And later, his 6-year-old son was too afraid to sleep in their own house. This is a warfare that has driven people to fear clear skies, to fear their own homes. Nowhere is safe. They cannot even sit down together to meet. And this is just one example of the 2,000 innocent people that die every year at the hands of signature strikes. At every turn, we are sold a lie. We are told that we are not at war because there's no need to deploy troops, that we've achieved peace because 2 individuals aren't fighting. Our governments have told us that drones provide a clean and efficient way to counteract terrorism. But the inconvenient truth is that what they really provide is a way for our governments to carry out war without ever declaring it. What kind of a peace is one where soldiers lie awake at night, where people fear clear skies above them? We are at war, and no one should be able to say that they were just following orders or just playing a game. If we deny this, we assert our power through the fear of a random, faceless attack. Who are the terrorists now?
Yes, there are, as we read, lots of collateral damage. But is that collateral damage really worse than might occur in a traditional war?
This is a really big question that we're faced with when we look at the ways that we should navigate modern warfare. And I think the example we should look to when it comes particularly to signature strikes is chemical weapons. Because it is true that drones are extremely useful. We can use them for surveillance, and in the cases when we have intelligence about specific operations we should carry out, they are extremely useful. I don't mean to advocate for not carrying out war at all. But in terms of a practice that does more harm than good, in terms of a practice much like the use of chemical weapons that certainly were efficient in achieving their goal, the international community has to acknowledge that there is a point at which we draw a line that harm is too great. And given that there are thousands of people that die because of these signature strikes, but also the fact that these people live in terror is a point that I would say we should definitely draw a line. And that looks like international organizations creating mandates that say that that signature strikes are things that we would outlaw in the same way that we've done with chemical weapons.
When discussing this use of weapons, chemical weapons, or any kind of means to keep the conflict away from ourselves, from our nation. When discussing the wars of the past, the typical answer was, we didn't know. Do you think that today, in the era of information, it is still possible to say, we didn't know?
That's a very good question. And one that probably has quite a good argument for both sides. I would say there are obviously people who live in these environments and are very aware, but often it's happening in rural environments in the Middle East where the ability for information to get shared is limited. And when that information is shared to Western media, it is often inaccurate and not always reported. So there is definitely a problem in the spread of information in that way. In terms of drones and the way that I discuss it in my speech, this is also true for drone operators who are fed into an environment where they believe that they are playing a game. Examples include the fact that they call the objects when they are doing their strikes, they call their targets fun-sized terrorists. And they describe it as having your first strike as having your cherry popped. So there is a language and a treatment of these activities that trivializes it to the point where it is possible that people obfuscate that responsibility and suggest that they aren't fully accountable to the acts that they are carrying out. And then that links more so to this idea of war and allows our governments to say this is not a war because there are no soldiers that we are losing or because you can't see it or hear it.
So back in the time before drones, when America decided we need to hunt terrorists, we invaded Afghanistan in 2001. Do you think that the way the US government is able to hide behind this as not being a war actually saves us from doing a similar boots-on-the-ground approach? And if so, do you think that perhaps, although the cost of using drone strikes is high, it's maybe better than the alternative, which may be full-scale war again?
Certainly, in terms of the context of counter-terrorism, neither of these approaches are are at all very good. To suggest that the alternative to using drones is a boots-on-the-ground approach, I would reject, because I think the ways that the Western nations need to deal with interacting with terrorists have to dramatically change. With the rise of asymmetric warfare, it's become clear that our attempts to launch a front on these groups that have decentralized power structures, that have the ability to act out these acts in lots of different countries, there is no way that we can fight these people on the ground. I think 5 minutes or 3 minutes is not a long time to solve the problem of terrorism, but I think if there were one thing that I would offer to counteract that, it has to come through an exchange of ideas and an exchange of education, because these strikes don't just injure these people, they give terrorists evidence to fuel their ideas, that they can point to the West or point to drones and say these are things that are happening against us and we have to act. If we stop that and we open up abilities to communicate with these people, only then will we have a genuine chance at changing the way that these people perceive the world and changing the threat that they perceive from the West.